Welcome. You're listening to the Good Girls Don't podcast with Ashley Ray
and Verity Mansfield.
This is the podcast where we smash those rules that we've been taught to follow both as men and women and burn the damn rule book. We're tackling the big issues and the issues nobody wants to talk about, and we'll be fiercely feminist about it.
This podcast is about inspiration, education, compassion, and being the change that you need to see in this world. This podcast is for the trailblazers, the freedom fighters, and the soul igniters, and all the women just like you who are ready to break the good girl rules and be heard.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of Australia and its First Nations people on which this podcast is produced and consumed. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.
Get ready for the revolution. It's coming to you now. It's coming to you now. We're gonna sing an evolution. And they'll never bring us down. No, they'll never bring us down.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I am a feminist.
My name is Verity, and I am also a feminist.
Welcome to Feminists Anonymous, everyone.
It's not quite anonymous. We give you our names and you know exactly who we are. But today we had on the amazing and opinionated Jennifer Zeven, and we love Jennifer. We came across her on various Facebook posts, and it was actually quite funny because she actually criticized one of our episodes, and that is sort of how we ended up getting in contact with Jennifer and wanting her to actually share her wisdom and her knowledge and her expertise. And I think this is one of the things that we love as women, is this idea that we can collaborate and we can continue to learn off each other, and that we can hear each other's perspectives and grow from them. So it was such a joy to have her on.
Hells yeah. And Jen's a copywriter, blogger, emerging author, mother, and hashtag opinionated woman. Jennifer is changing the world one blog at a time. The focus of Blurbology was to attract other strong, intelligent, and outspoken, fun, and feisty women. Jennifer wanted them to find her so that they could work together to project the brilliance of their vision, spirit, and feminist-friendly enterprise above all other meh content in the beige seas of the interwebs. Oh, that sounds really boring.
Isn't it? There's so much that we kind of sort of brush over our beliefs as women, and so we do make our content really blah.
We do. I've certainly done that a few times. So having content that actually showcases what you believe in and what you value, I find is incredibly awesome.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And Jennifer's articles have been featured in Women in Kidspot and in Roooar magazine. And she's one of Medium's top writers in feminism, and is taking time away from her copywriting to write her first manuscript.
It's visceral, it's raw, it's necessary, and Jennifer shares her experiences of early motherhood and exposes the way motherhood defines womanhood, whether you have kids or not.
Yeah, which is so powerful because it so beautifully ties in with our last episode with Marie-Louise.
It really, really does. And it was actually a really interesting conversation about motherhood because Verity is a mum and I am not by choice. So this was a really fascinating chat, and we talked a lot about so much about motherhood and feminism and how the patriarchal construct of motherhood robs us of our identity.
Yeah, and even if we choose not to have children, we still get robbed by the concept of motherhood. It was so fascinating. And we also talked about why women are villainized for choosing to opt out of motherhood.
Yes, and a really big point here was why misdirected anger is destroying the sisterhood.
And we also talked about the cognitive dissonance of mourning pre-motherhood, yet still being in love with our children and celebrating the journey of motherhood.
We also talked a lot about why, as privileged white ladies, we need to not only find our voices, but actually use them for all the women around the world whose voices are silenced.
So true. And we also talked about, is it really true that men can only remember 3 things?
I say yes. That's my vote.
Jennifer said no. But
All
we
of
do.
these-
Yeah, just talking about the cop-outs that we have around the masculine and the feminine. It was such a great conversation.
Oh, it was great. All of this is coming up in just a sec on this episode of the Good Girls Don't podcast. Jen, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to jump straight in and ask you this question. When did you first identify as a fully fledged feminist?
Well, really, it wasn't until probably about around the 2013 mark, when I had my second child. I sort of, feminism wasn't hugely on my radar at all. Growing up, I didn't really hear the word until about year 9 from the standard groovy relief teacher. So despite going to a girls' school, we never talked about feminism at all. And then she talked about it in the context of modern history, and I just thought, that's crap. What's this feminism about? But then I didn't think too much more about it. So, years went by and I was in a job, like a lot of people, where we had pay bands. Everybody knew what everybody else was earning. I earned the same as my male colleagues. So I never really felt, to be honest, I thought we were in a post-feminism society. And I didn't think that it was a thing that was really necessary anymore for a long time. So it wasn't really until I became a mum and started to feel those pressures and have my role in my life so dramatically changed. Like all of a sudden, the housework, it was all mine. I did all the cooking. Like we never did that before we had kids. And I had all of this in my lap, as well as the baby, literally. And I guess it wasn't until I started to feel disadvantaged to a degree, being aware that I am a white woman and I have those privileges that come with being that. But yeah, and I just I had postnatal depression. I just felt, what's wrong with me, Why aren't I happy? And I had people asking me, why aren't you happy? Your children are beautiful. As if
You have everything you want, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
All you live for?
Yeah. You've got a nice partner. You've got beautiful children. Why aren't you happy? And of course, there were a lot of reasons why I wasn't happy, but it wasn't until I started doing some feminist reading that I actually thought, I'm not crazy. It's not me. And the reason why I'm angry and depressed is because my life is depressing and because I have a genuine case to feel angry.
And I should be angry. Yeah, it's so true. I was reading, someone sent me, I deal a lot with relationships, and one of the ladies I work with sent me this blog of somebody else's, and it was this woman talking about romance in her relationship, and her romance is the little things, like her husband getting up in the middle of the night when the baby needs feeding. And I was like, dude, if that's your definition of romance, I call that equal rights, but sure. But it's really interesting, I think, how we do have these, defined expectations. And I totally agree with you. I think it's when we hit motherhood, suddenly we have this, like we're bombarded with the expectations of, of what it means to be a female, and all of those labels and all of those, and they're very constraining. Like they're very, there's so many women that go through motherhood and lose their identity.
Exactly.
And for good reason.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I felt. I really just felt, and I've written about this in my blogs and stuff, really just felt that old me, or pre-kids me, the real me, was just pushed to the back. And the world saw me differently. And the world treated me differently. And it wasn't always, I've got 3 kids, so obviously it's not all bad news. But I struggled with that loss of identity, that loss of self for a long time, and realised how much I had come to define myself by my job, by how much I earned, by being independent financially. I grew up probably like a lot of people of my age. My mum was the homemaker, finger things, because I hate that word. She was the homemaker, Dad was the breadwinner, and that's all he did. Like, he did his job, he came home, yelled at Mum and us. She did everything. And when I was growing up, I remember thinking, especially in the teen years, I am never going to be like this. This is the last thing that I want. In fact, I'm surprised I ended up getting married, because I was against it for such a long time. Like, it just seemed like an excuse that was used for someone I cared about to stay shackled in this horrid, unhappy relationship.
Yeah.
And she still, hi, Mum and Dad. But it is like, you know, so I thought, that is never going to be me, never going to be me. And then after my year of maternity leave, my little boy, who was unusually clingy, just was not ready for daycare, just wasn't ready. So I ended up resigning from my job, as well as, you know, the economic reasons that a lot of people end up staying home. I was working part-time when I was pregnant, and I knew that daycare would eat up my, notice the emphasis, my money. So I thought, you know, no, I'll just stay home anyway. You know, I suppose overall I don't regret that decision now, but it was extremely hard at the time, extremely hard. And that's where I really started to feel that. And people didn't understand. People didn't want to know. They just thought I should be happy because I had this baby.
Yeah, and it's really demoralizing, isn't it, just to have your whole identity watered down to the fact that there's a nice man in the house and a baby. Like, that's all you should ever want or dream for or hope, you know, as your best standard of life or your highest standard of living. And it really sets women up, I think, to fail, because it's the same like when we talk about relationships. It's not about just having a great guy, you know, like the self-love, the self-worth. It should be one person in their, you know, whole entity and another person in their entity that come together and co-create a relationship together. It's not someone that needs somebody else or depends on somebody else to make them, you know, worthy or valuable or fulfilled. And I feel like that's what happens when we're a mother. We get told that we should feel fulfilled because we have a man in our lives, because we have a baby.
Exactly.
And those things, we're not fulfilled as women. We have no identity. We have no self-worth. And that's really fucked up. Like, it really, really is on every level. But we accept it as this false truth. We do accept it as a truth. And therefore we don't really understand how damaging it really is until we're in it. And you have women with massive issues of postnatal depression and anxiety who aren't coping and who feel this incredible loss of their identity, of their sexuality as well, that their idea of having this being a sensual being, you know, can completely go out the window. And it's just so destructive. And we wonder why, you know, 50% of marriages break down.
That's right. That's right. You know, we had a few tense times during that period. And sort of when we had the first baby, I was just sort of, I don't know, I just kind of sat with it until it got better, which it did eventually. But then when I started to feel the same way with my second one in 2013, I just thought, no, I'm not doing this again. And that's when I started to do things to help myself. I went and got counselling. I started going to the gym. And then part of that was to get some intellectual stimulation back into my life. I just would wander around the house, you know, pushing the broom around, thinking, this is my job now. If I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it.
Well, changing dirty nappies didn't provide you with enough intellectual.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? I just can't think why. But you know, and I just remember thinking my brain is worth more than Peppa Pig and Play School, and you know, things.
That is the quote of the century right there.
So that's what brought me to study, which is what brought me to feminism, essentially, because I did it with gender studies, and I just remember thinking, oh my God. And I mean, I know a bit of an MRA film called The Red Pill, so I don't want to use that phrase too much, but it was like having the veils stripped back and seeing the ways all of the ways that right from girlhood we're constrained into, still in this day and age. I've been watching Mad Men lately, and it has
I can't watch it.
Betty Draper, who's been raised to think that all you need to do is be pretty and be the homemaker, and that was her purpose, when of course it's not. But then I found, even in this day and age, that's how I was expected to feel. And then I wondered what was wrong with myself when I didn't feel that way. And it was really reading other writing by women, about their own experiences, about confirming the things that I had felt but not said, because I thought, that's just me overthinking it, blah, 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 or being socially gaslighted.
But that's a crucial point, right? The things that aren't said, which is why we love this podcast. It's about women talking up and speaking up. And I was listening to this gorgeous interview the other week, and they were talking about these underlying, issues or foundations of the patriarchy, where men are taught to tune out of their emotions and women own their voice. And these things serve the patriarchy, but don't actually serve anyone else. And I was talking to my daughter last night, and so she's 13 years old, and, her and I had these really beautiful conversations, and she was saying, like, she doesn't, I was saying, well, have you spoken to this person about this thing that's going on? She's like, I can't. And, we were talking about this thing where she doesn't feel that she has a voice. By 13 years old, she already, as a female in this world, believes she does not have a voice.
That's right.
That, to me, is just the patriarchy kicking in already and telling her who she should and shouldn't be, and to not rock the boat and to stay quiet and don't disturb the status quo, to accept the bullshit that's around us, to not challenge. And then I just literally looked at her and I held her face in my hands. And I said to her, Liv, that's my job. My job is to help you fight for your voice and to keep your voice. And when I said it, there was so much truth in that moment. It just went through every bone in my body. And it really reiterates for me why it's so important to have women like yourself, Jennifer, who are using your words and your voice. Because so many of us, there's so many women in the world that can't use their voice because of the culture they're raised in, because of religious reasons, because of the color of their skin. But there's also so many white women in their own homes who cannot use their voice. And when we look at Australia and, 1 woman a week dies from domestic violence in Australia, we have a problem. White women have a problem, just as well as all other women. So, yes, we are privileged. We have a lot more privileges than other women, but we still need to learn to use our voices. Use our voices for all of these other women.
That's right. And it starts, that silencing, it starts so young. I read, it's an amazing book. I read Rage Becomes Her by Saraya Chamali not long ago. Yeah. I would definitely say it's essential recommended feminist reading. But she says when girls are just 6 years old, they already learn that that their anger or they're acting in an assertive way is not expected. They are learning already that they need to just compromise, just be quiet, not rock the boat, and do all of those nurturing or as I call them, silencing behaviours at that such a young age. And I see this in my daughter's 6, and I see it in her already. She's just, God, she's so much like me in some ways, and I see her get so angry about things that anybody would get angry about. She gets pushed at school, or someone jumps in front of her in line all the time, just little schoolyard things. But she doesn't feel comfortable to say, hey, don't push me. I'm trying to give her the tools to do that and to speak up and to say even little things like, no, I already said that, when boys interrupt, because that's another stat that's covered in the book, how much, even at the school stage, boys are able to interrupt the class and they're able to interrupt whoever's speaking. And that goes on into the workforce and into general life as adults.
And into politics.
Exactly. But when you think of the world around us, like, film, books, things like that, it's mostly, if you look at the Gina Davis Institute, there's stats and papers and things on that. But most of the speaking roles still go to white men. And it's still an overwhelmingly it's an overwhelmingly man's and boys' world where boys just
Dominate.
they dominate and they take that in, and they're used to having most of the space to speak. I think that matters, you know. It starts at such a young age, and when we take that, we carry that with us, and it's just so damaging. And like you were saying, like there's so many white women who are, like I found myself, in their homes, isolated. My social circle just shrunk amazingly.
Yeah.
You know, once you have the baby, people stop visiting. I was alone, and I felt betrayed by this sisterhood that I was never a part of before. I kind of thought, why didn't anyone tell me this? Like, I'd read pregnancy books and, you know, up the duff, whatever, before I had the kids. And they do touch on depression, but they don't touch on the rage that you can feel when you know you're being suppressed, and when you are a part of your own subjugation.
Yeah.
And that's definitely how I felt. And I think that people are happy, when I say people, I mean the patriarchy, they're happy for that, because when someone's depressed, it's a state of resignation. You feel powerless. But when you get angry, it's because you know this is wrong, you know, and that makes you want to make some changes. And that's getting angry is actually what drove me to get writing and to share my truth and all be honest about the crappier parts of being a mum, and feel letting other women who have felt that way feel seen and heard when they don't know how to articulate it themselves or don't have the same platform.
Yeah, and we're so taught as women that anger is negative, like you can't be angry, and it's used to shame us, especially like, oh, you're an angry feminist, or you're just an angry woman, you're bitter, and it's like, whoa, like I have a right to be angry, like don't shame me into silence. And
exactly.
Also this idea that anger is so powerful. It doesn't have to lead to negative destruction, but it can actually lead to a healthy destruction and dismantling of things that do not serve us, of challenging things, of creating something new. And we as women are taught not to tune into our anger at all, but to push it down, suppress it, not acknowledge it, to, you know, stay nice, keep a smile on your face.
Yes.
And don't acknowledge your anger. Where men are taught to not tune into their emotions, and that the lowest emotion they're allowed to feel, as far as the patriarchy is concerned, is anger. They're allowed to embrace anger. They're allowed to destroy. They're allowed to be bullies. They're allowed to use their fists and try and prove themselves through their physical strength and assert themselves angrily. And it's just a really, like, I've coached a few men, and it's really fascinating. They can go to anger, but they can't go, because anger is a secondary emotion to pain and hurt, right? But they can't let themselves go to the first primary one, which is pain and hurt. And I've coached men, and they will call themselves pussies. And I'm like, oh, like, do you really speak to?
Yeah.
Use that word.
Yeah. There is so much wrong with it. Just the feminization of being able to feel emotions. And when I say feminization, it is it's not a complimentary thing, as I'm sure you're aware.
Like, oh,
you know, it's a step down for them. It's them failing in their role in being, I don't know, whatever, like a man that's not supposed to feel anything, and then wonders why there's such huge male suicide statistics. And you know, it's a problem. And I read Clementine Ford's "Boys Will Be Boys" earlier this year.
I'm still reading it. I've got to keep putting it down because I get so angry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read that, and I was just, because my boy is 9, and I just felt like holding him and just, you're not allowed to go out into the world because it's out to harm you. Of course, my daughter as well. Yeah, that was an eye-opening read. Very powerful. I think it did a really good, in-depth and insightful job of revealing the full extent of the problems with masculinity that the patriarchy has created. The patriarchy has done this, not feminism.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's the problem, isn't it, with feminism? Like the minute that, you know, you talk about feminism, men recoil and they think
Yes.
it's against them. They think feminism means that a masculine has to suffer.
Well, it's not just men who recoil as well.
That's right.
And
There's a lot of other people included in that.
we know, well, Ashley and I both have known women who have been upset about the word patriarchy, and they've got boys and they think, oh, you're against my sons. And it's like, oh, you just need to like
Cool your jets for a second and hear us out.
I would suggest they don't understand the full meaning of the term patriarchy. So I love patriarchy. I use it a lot when I write because it's patriarchy. That's the system that we're up against. So it's not picking on individuals. Patriarchy is patriarchy, and it's designed to immediately benefit men. But does it benefit them in the long run?
No.
Of course it doesn't. The dark half of the man's whole, it's obviously has been literally worlds of hurt for women through the ages. So, and that's why it's something that we need to keep working to really dismantle, because it's not good for any of us. So I don't know why it feels like it's a crumbling ship that just keeps going and nobody knows how to stop it. But because it's what everybody knows, particularly men, who, as I've said, they do at least directly benefit from being a man in a patriarchy, they're sort of like, well, it's not broke, so let's not fix it. But it is. It's so broken.
Yeah, and this is why we love talking to Tyron Malbright the other week, because he was saying, you know, he was in the AFL and he was, you know, like a tradie, and he was able to go out and drink and obliterate himself and do drugs and party and sleep with as many women as he liked. And he was like, this is great, until he found that it was actually destroying his soul.
That's right.
And he was like, hang on, this is not great. This does not serve me. This actually doesn't serve any men.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really beautiful having that conversation with him as a man, where he's, you know, able to talk about his experience as a man in the patriarchy and how it does not serve men.
Yeah, because I listened to that podcast, you know, so and I thought it was really good how he pointed out, you know, men, we're allowed to cry at a football game if our team loses, but we're not allowed to cry if a relative dies. So you know, and things like that. You're not allowed to cry over a girl. So you know, I've had some other views on that podcast, but I think it is really great that there are men's circles who are talking about this, because one of the things that irks me a little bit about feminism is that men are happy to deride it, but then they look to feminism to save them from this thing. But we can't do all of the emotional labour of waking them up and making them see this as a problem. So they have to do that. They have to do a lot of that themselves and start talking about it to each other. So you can't swat feminism down on the one hand and then say, well, but why aren't you helping us?
Yeah.
I should just step down the feminism and help men rise. That's not what I agree with. But,
I've heard that same sentiment across a lot of different movements, including Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hang on, I can make you aware of the issue, but it is not my job to hold your hand while you realise how much a part of it you've been.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the same with, so I've been reading Annabelle Crabb's quarterly essay on called Men at Work, which is about how hard it is for them to get paternity leave, flexible arrangements, and how strapped they are into this role of breadwinner. And it is actual. It's discrimination. It is, and I love reading her stuff. I've read the Wife Drought. I think it's amazing, because I actually do think if we want to get more women in, then it's true. We have to help the men. The men have to be able to get out when they want to, because, you know, raising the children, cleaning the house, all of these things have to be done to a degree. Like I am certainly no Stepford wife. I hate housework. I'll do most things instead of doing housework. But you know, but there are some things they've got to be done. Stuff with the kids, it's got to be done. And so men need to be able to get out, but they need to see that. They need to see that as a problem, and they need to want to do that. But because of what's called the imminent nature of domestic and unpaid caring versus the transcendental nature of paid work, they don't really weigh up, because you know, the house gets messy after you clean it. The meal gets eaten. The dishes get messy again. The baby poos in its nappy again. Nobody gives you a slap on the back. Nobody says, you're a really valued team member, and you don't get your 360 feedback, and, you know, and most importantly, you don't get paid. So it's no wonder that men aren't lining up for this job, because motherhood, even though our society as a whole deifies motherhood, we don't honour motherhood. Motherhood has no real power, except for in a subversive way, where we cross good old Freud talking about, you know, the overbearing mother and the separation from the mother and the Oedipus complex and all of those things. Motherhood, women's work, nursing, teaching, anything to do with women's work and caring, it's all unpaid or relatively low paid compared to male professions.
Yeah.
And according to Jane Caro in Accidental Feminists, when an industry, a paid industry, does start to get dominated by females, guess what happens to the pay levels? They go down.
That's incredible.
So the way that and this is sort of a real drive in my writing, I do think the way that our society sees mothers, motherhood and any unpaid caring, you don't have to be a mother to do unpaid caring. You might be caring for your elderly parents or, you know, whatever. The way that the role of feminine nurture is expected but not counted, it impacts women all over, all walks of life, through the workplace, everything. I think that's a really root cause of why there's still the gender pay gap.
And there's a massive thing, isn't there, about this sense of importance. So as doing all this unpaid work, there is no full appreciation or feeling of significance or importance in it. And yet if you're receiving money for it, then we attach this concept of importance. So men feel that they're important. Men can't give up their work. Men can't take annual leave or sick leave to look after a child because them working is important. And one of the things that pissed me off so much is actually the school primary school where my kids went to. Mother's Day you were allowed to go in for Mother's Day, and you've got cupcakes, and your kids gave you a little hand massage, and it was all cute. And that happened at 1:00 in the afternoon. Yet for Father's Day, they did a barbecue and woodworks. We had this very sexist ideas already, but that happened at 8:00 in the morning before school started, so the men could go off to work and their day wasn't interrupted, because apparently their time is more valuable and important than a woman's.
Well, time is money.
Yeah, and I made a stance of not turning up to Mother's Day, and I turned up to the Father's Day celebrations and said, well, apparently you think that I'm actually a man because I have a job.
I wonder what would happen sometimes if we just...
So, I'm here.
I genuinely wonder sometimes what would happen if we just invoiced whoever the guy in our life is that is not helping, or even to like the local MPs, and just said, this is all the unpaid work that I'm doing and I need to be compensated for that because, you know, welfare's not covering it and I can't get a job or whatever it is, whatever's going on. Be like, look, I do X amount of housework and child rearing, and if that's not an important role, I don't know what the hell is.
Exactly.
Well, the interesting thing is when you get divorced, the lawyers do take that into account. How much of the housework, how much of the house management, how much of caring for the children as a portion did you do? But it is absolutely fascinating. I've dated a lot as a single mother. So I've dated a lot of single dads, and it's amazing when these conversations come up and the men cannot understand it. You did not earn the money, it is not yours. And it is, unfortunately, the majority of men that feel this way. The majority of men like their money, and they admitted to me. I thought, this is not selling point for you. Like, you want to date me and you're telling me that you hid money from your wife during your divorce so you didn't have to pay her or support your children?
Exactly.
Like, dude, this is not a selling point. You're a dickhead.
I've seen a couple of blokes, and I wasn't dating them, thank God, but just heard them talking at work enough, or my sister was looking for a flatmate when we were living in Canberra once, and I went round just to sit with her while she was interviewing this dude. And he was basically on the run from his ex-wife. I mean, he may have had good reason for it, but my guess is he was just one of those blokes that was just, no, this is mine and you're not getting it. He told her I put all my money into my mum's account so she can't get it, and everything I own is in a couple of bags so I can always get up and move whenever she finds me, and so she can't hassle me for child support. But that's what he said to his prospective flatmate. So he got rejected.
Yeah, I hope so.
But men are so open about this, and this is what makes it really fascinating, that they believe this behaviour is purely acceptable.
They do.
And they don't expect any judgment for it. It's really that their ethics do not deserve to be, or their lack of ethics don't deserve to be judged. And it is incredible that, and we teach boys, and this comes up in Boys Will Be Boys with Clementine Ford, we teach boys to go out in the world and make the biggest mess you want to. Some woman will just have to deal with the consequences.
Yep. No, it's terrible. I remember when I was in the Air Force, some conversations with the boys. When I say boys, they were men, and these were married men talking about, and I mean, they were just sort of shooting the shit, but this is how it starts, that this sort of culture that promotes this kind of behaviour. They were saying, they would joke and say, it costs less to get a hitman than it does to get a divorce lawyer, and I love my wife, but if she leaves me, she gets nothing.
That's not
my wife. I love my wife, but
it's called ownership.
I own her, and that's unfortunately the thing. And it's still not all men, but it is still a really common theme. And when you think about all of the jokes about an opinionated woman, the angry feminist, the mother-in-law, the ball and chain as the wife, it is
the crazy bitch, like that.
Exactly. Yes.
So often to shame women.
Yeah, psycho. It's this is the kind of culture that does promote eventually violence against women. I mean, it won't make a man who's not abusive start bashing his wife, but what it does, or partner, whatever, what it does do is give the men who do that or think they might, it gives them permission, because they think, it's not just me, everyone thinks this way. Yeah, the bitch deserves it. That's why I think, before I sort of came into feminism, I used to think, is it just semantics? What's it really achieving? Which is really funny, because now the words matter hashtag is such a big thing to me, because the words that we use, the stories that we're told and accept, they have a direct impact into what happens in people's lives and in our culture and in our society. And as a feminist, you often get told, can't you take a joke? It's just words. And women as well as men will say that. Oh, well, I wasn't offended. And it's sort of like, I'm glad you weren't offended.
But you probably should have been.
Exactly. But I find jokes about, the old joke about what do you call a woman with two black eyes as someone who didn't do what she was told the first time. I find that offensive.
That joke does not sit well with me.
I used to just shrug those sorts of things off when I was younger, because resisting, it gets exhausting, but you just need to keep calling that out. And I do now. And then there's some songs on the radio and things that I used to like that I can't listen to anymore.
So many, not some. I listen to the radio and I'm so conscious into the words. And my daughter was, I think, Ashley, we talked about this before. My daughter, who's in her first year of high school, was in her maths class, and the teacher had walked out the room and all these boys started singing this rap song. And my daughter came home and she was just acting really, you could tell she was upset by something, but even she didn't know what she was upset about. And I was like, you okay, babe? And she was like, I just don't feel good. So she knew something in herself didn't feel right. We kept talking about it and she couldn't put a finger on it. And then I think we went to the shops, and on our way back, she said, Mum, she goes, what's this song about? And I said, I've never heard of it. So we Google searched the lyrics, and I'm reading the lyrics and I just wanted to vomit. And it's like that gang raping a prostitute. Yeah. And I was like, where did you hear this? And she goes, maths class, she said, which was her last lesson of the day, and she said, teacher walked out the room, the boys all started singing this song, and she said, I just felt so small. And she said, I looked around and all the girls just went really quiet.
Yes.
And she said, we couldn't do anything. And she said, I didn't know what the song was about, but she goes, but I could feel it in my body that it wasn't good and I did not feel safe.
Yes.
And I think that's so amazing for a 13-year-old girl to be able to tune in to the energy, that horrible energy of feeling small and dismantled and shamed, and just, she knew, she could feel it. And, like you said, it's all around. Like, I hear my partner's boys singing songs and they think it's funny, and I'm like, do you actually know what that's about? About having sex with women's bottoms. And they're like, that's disgusting. And I'm like, well, you're singing it.
Yeah. And I think you have to have those conversations with kids. I mean, mine are sort of, I guess I still pre-approve a lot of the stuff that they listen to around the house, but they're getting to the age where they're going to hear music and language and things like that that I don't control. So I think keeping an open conversation with the kids about popular culture, about what that ad might be saying, about what the song words are, talking about books we're reading. I'm trying to get them to both think critically at a younger age than I did, because like your daughter, I mean, girls absorb those messages, whether we realise it or not. It takes, I think it's less than 3 seconds. I read somewhere, I'm pretty sure it was something that Jean Kilbourne wrote said in the Killing Us Softly movie. It's just horrendous. So all you can do really, you can't stop it, is try and make them aware of it. It's kind of funny because I'm starting to talk about, in a child-appropriate way, consent and things like this, and waiting for an enthusiastic yes, and having because my kids, they don't know about sex per se, but they know that animals mate to have babies. so then they've deduced that people must do the same thing. And so in a few little talks, and I've said, it's not just about something that you do just because everybody else is doing, and it's about giving pleasure to your partner and really knowing the person that you're with. And so we've also talked about, we had a little bit of harassment. But anyway, last night the kids were getting in and out of the bath. My daughter said something about my son's penis. and he said, stop sexually insulting me. And it was really funny. But I said, yeah, Dale, that's not on, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that is harassing him and he doesn't like it. He said no. So they both get it. Like, I don't give one talk to the boy and one talk to the girl. I just try and keep an open conversation, because I do think it's such a problem. And especially after I read Boys Will Be Boys, I was like, oh my God. So far, my philosophy of not letting the kids have any technology until they can work and buy their own is looking pretty good. all of that Reddit and 4channel stuff, my God.
So much out there. It's crazy.
I had a guy on Instagram just last week tell me that getting just the word yes in terms of consent was enough. Didn't have to bother about the enthusiasm part. I was like, dude, no, I mean, anyone can say yes if there's a gun held to their head. That doesn't mean it's okay.
That's right. If she doesn't have a choice. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's when I do get angry, because we hear a lot of, the men don't know what to expect anymore. They don't know how to act. They're confused. They're in pain. And it's kind of like, well, just don't be a dick. And
don't be a dick.
Don't expect a massive reward when you act like a human should act. And I think a lot of with the masculinity, and again, back to your podcast, I'm glad to hear men speaking out about it, because men do need to call out other men when they say those things, when they tell those jokes, like men of all ages really. But I accept that it's sort of going to be probably not an old person thing to do, but it's sort of you've got to keep doing it, because even with my dad, I mean, he is just an old man and tells horrible sexist jokes, and what you get asked is, what, didn't you get that, or don't you have a sense of humour? And it's like, and I always say to him, well, I do. It just wasn't funny. And I'll,
I
yeah,
do
I'll
have
just,
sense of humor, just one that doesn't involve violence.
Yeah, and why
Exactly.
should humiliation and humour go hand in hand? Why do we have to humiliate people in order to laugh?
that's right. It's not clever. It's just, it's
not
very
clever.
base. One of that wicked campers, that horrible misogynistic van company. I had a Facebook group and stuff like that where I was raising awareness, because once Queensland legislated against them, they started coming to South Australia to register their vans here, because we still have no meaningful laws to stop them. But that's now that there's a national legislation that will start kicking off next year. So I'll be interested to see what the legislation looks like. But the question needs to be asked. I wrote an article about it for Women. When it comes to, racial vilification or vilification on basis of gender and religion, they have the anti-discriminatory bodies to follow that through. But when vilification on basis of sex, which is very much what Wicked was doing, even though there were a couple of vans that poked fun at men as well, or that were offensive to men as well, what we've got to follow it up with is the ad standards, who have no power to enforce it. But hopefully the new legislation will close that loophole that they were using. However, the question still needs to be asked, why aren't we as women and girls able to follow things like that up with an anti-discrimination body?
I would even say the anti-discrimination bodies as well don't have that much power. Like, unless because we've looked into this quite recently for a separate issue with my partner with ageism and a bit of racism, but there's not a lot of power unless you have the coin to take someone to court over it, which not every
exactly.
So there's
Most people
what
don't.
you can do.
That's right. Even when you take things like that to court, especially when it's to do with sexual assault or sexism, the laws are literally written by men for men.
Yeah.
So they and I have a big problem with how some of the laws are written. For the laws around rape, it's not even called rape. It's always called sexual intercourse without permission, or unlawful sexual intercourse. Sex isn't rape. And I think that the language needs to reflect that.
Yeah.
And just, when you look at what's happening to the family courts, I mean, they've got Pauline Hanson up front, who has a bias that she's been very clear about, overseeing that, what's it called? The new inquiry into it. And I think that says a lot about the country that we're living in, or at least the government that we're living under. We have to keep proving again and again and again that women are liars. That's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And we basically have to prove that a woman isn't lying, but to protect her. And I understand that that's legally probably isn't easy, but I am often disgusted and appalled over some of the punitive measures handed out to men who have killed their spouses or bashed them. It really is disgusting, and it makes me angry every day that I read another article about another woman who was killed by someone who at one point at least she must have been in love with. It just makes me sad.
It is absolutely horrific. But like we said, domestic violence in Australia, 1 woman a week is dying in Australia from domestic violence. So where can people find you? They can find you on Instagram.
Yep, I'm on Instagram. I've actually got 2 Instagrams. It's a bit weird. So I'm Jennifer Zeven Author, or Jennifer Zeven. And I'm on Twitter, Jennifer Zeven. And I'm on Facebook, Jennifer Zeven Author.
I'm sensing a theme.
Hashtag Jennifer Zeven. That will probably get you there.
We'll make it easy to stalk you.
That Zeven, spelt the same as 7, except with a Z.
Oh, that's beautiful. And we'll make sure that those links are in the show notes as well, so that people can easily find you and stalk you and soak up all of that yummy wisdom and the beautiful perspectives that you have that really challenge us to really sit and think about who it is we want to be as women, whether we're mothers or not mothers, and And yeah, just to challenge those societal norms so that we can actually be the full person, the full expression of the being that we are, and not, like we said, someone that's just had their identity dictated to them. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for being on and chatting to us and just sharing all your wisdom, experience and perspectives.
Oh, thank you for letting me talk about feminism for an hour.
Hey, if you want to continue this conversation, head over to our Facebook page and be part of the revolution. You can find us at Good Girls Don't Podcast on Facebook. Please note we cannot create change alone. Your support, likes, comments, shares, and iTunes reviews will help us to give a voice to the insanely inspirational women and the controversial issues that we discuss.
If you'd like to be a part of our podcast, or if you have an issue that you have a burning desire for us to bring into the light, please contact us. With fierceness, Ashley
and Verity.
Get ready for the revolution.